something more than just coincidence. Later, she looked at me and grinned. I wouldn't mind if this day lasted forever. I smiled back. Neither would I. Ring, ring, ring. Damn, Bobby said, pulling for me. The phone's ringing. I have to get that. She pulled herself easily from the pool, hustling into the kitchen to answer the phone. She came back outside carrying a portable phone, saying, Yep, I've been giving him some instruction, but we haven't gotten too far yet. She smiled at me and said into the phone, Yes, sir. He seems pretty relaxed and comfortable here. Yeah, I'll feed him well. He's a lot of fun to be around. I'll keep him for as long as you want. She listened a while. Oh, Howard, quit teasing. I should be so lucky to get a guy like Chad to be interested in me. Yep, I have the front perimeter boundary set. Who even knows this place exists? Only a few in our office know about this place. That's the way you've always kept it. Okay, he doesn't need any extra clothes right now. I have enough to take care of what he needs. Yes, sir. I know that if I need anything, I can call you anytime. Okay, I'll ask him and let Serena know. All right, Howard, I'll look for you tomorrow then. Make sure you call me before you come so I know to look for you. I'd hate to neutralize you trying to drive in the garage. The boss is being overly cautious. He says he thinks some of the men are being tailed when they move from the garage. He said he knows no one followed him yesterday when he brought you out here, but he doesn't want to take a chance to come out directly from the office. Your stuff from the hotel is being boxed and sent from the hotel to the office. One of the guys will probably have it shipped to a drop where it will be picked up and brought here. Bobby came over and helped me out of the pool and had me hold on to her as she dried me off. I used my cane to hobble over to sit under the patio on a fancy outdoor love seat. The big woman came over and sat next to me, turning toward me. She looked at me and said, Chad, do you have many close relatives like a mom or dad, brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins? I looked at her and said, My immediate family was all killed in a car accident while I was on my first tour over in Iraq. That would have been my mom, dad, and a sister. Both grandparents passed away over the last couple of years, and the only aunt I have is a recluse up in Montana somewhere. I remember it is up around Helena. She went up there after a boyfriend jilted her and stayed up there. That was my dad's sister. My mom's kin are all down in the Louisiana Bayou. There's Sinjun that lives out on the Swamp Islands. I've never been there, and I've never met any of them. Mom ran away from the swamp when she was 15. Met and married my dad when she was still 16. That's why I stayed in the service and kept going back to war zones. It wasn't a death wish, but it was a way for me to laugh at it. Bobby patted my hand and said, Well, stick around here and I'll lend you some of my kin. Besides Millie, I have 4 more sisters, both younger and older. The 2 youngest aren't married, but of course, Millie and my oldest sister are married. I have 2 brothers, one older and one younger than me. She smiled at me and said, And yes, all of us women in my family are big, really tall and strong. Wait until you meet my mom. You'll be amazed. She's nearly 7 to tall. When she was younger, she worked in a circus and did carnival sideshow performances as the world's tallest woman. Part of her act involved lifting heavy weights to demonstrate her strength. That's actually how she met my dad. He was brought on as her assistant for the weightlifting act. He's only about 5 feet 8 or 9 and really slim. But something sparked between them, and before long, my oldest sister was on the way. They got married but stayed with the circus for a while, working as clowns while she had Millie and my older brother, when she was pregnant with me. They decided to settle down near here and raised a family. My dad had been a mechanic for the circus. He also helped with sideshow setups, so he opened a small shop here. He still runs it in Braden with my 2 brothers, working on trucks and cars. I didn't mention my brothers earlier because I didn't want to overwhelm you. Henry is 6 feet 7 inches and weighs around 400 pounds. Donnie is about 5 feet 9 inches and pretty slim, maybe 140 pounds. Hard to believe they're brothers, but they're really close. Both are married and actually live next door to each other. Their wives are twins and both are around average height, but they're strong, confident women. So far, they each have 2 kids, and that might be it. After telling me about her family, she grew quiet, staring out over the backyard and the pool, lost in thought. I pulled her close to me, enjoying the skin-to-skin contact, but feeling the powerful muscles beneath her soft exterior. You are one hell of a big, beautiful woman. According to Millie and my sisters-in-law, I don't qualify because I'm not fat. I'm just big. They say you have to have a lot of extra pounds to be a BBW. Well, I'm the beholder, and I think you are one big, beautiful woman. Damned, you just fascinate the hell out of me. You're so sweet. You know, I'm not supposed to fraternize with guests, but you really don't count because you're part of us. We maybe shouldn't fraternize with fellow employees, but I think it's all right under the circumstances, don't you? Thinking about it a second, I answered, you know, Howard may have sent me out here for just that reason. I think he figured we might get together. The person who will have figured that out is Serena. You'll have to ask her in a backdoor sort of way. I'll do that when I call in this afternoon. I talk to the office twice a day every day. If I don't call or talk to them within the specified times, they are out here in a flash. I forgot a couple of times over the years, and each time there were 5 or 6 cars here. There was something that bothered me. Since I've been here, I haven't noticed any hardware. Do you have any protection here, or is it not good to have something like that in a safe house? Honey, I have a better arsenal than MacDill AFB, let me show you. Bobby led me into the house, both of us still naked. By the front door was an umbrella stand. She lifted out an MP5 from behind a couple of big umbrellas. Over by the kitchen door to the garage, she pulled another MP5 from behind the refrigerator. Next, she pulled out a counter drawer on the other side of the door, and there was a Glock 22. She led me throughout the house, showing me various handguns and MP5s. Bobby stopped at the door to her bedroom and said, "Don't be mad at what you see in here because it's part of what's necessary to keep this place protected." She opened the door and led me into the bedroom. She pulled a couple of biffled closet doors open to display 12.5 video screens. There was the front of the house, the patio, pool, and backyard. Each room in the house, the garage, and there must have been 4 cameras on the roof, giving a good view of the perimeter on the outside of the fence and down the street from the house. In the closet with the monitors were additional rifles and several boxes of handguns, along with multiple cases of ammunition. Bobby looked at me and asked, "Think that's enough?" All I could do was nod. We went back to the kitchen where she said, "It's time for lunch. I have some roast beef for sandwiches. How about a roast beef with pepper cheese, lettuce, tomato, and some jalapenos? Want plain mayonnaise, or would you rather have a horseradish spread?" Just a thought had my mouth watering. We fixed a couple of big sandwiches, and she pulled out a Coke Zero and held it out to me questioningly. I nodded and took it. She got one for herself, and we went back out to the patio still stark naked. We sat at the table on the patio enjoying the warm breeze while eating the delicious sandwiches. When we finished, Bobby asked, "Want to lie down for a few minutes and let our meal settle, or would you rather look at training videos?" "I'll follow you teach." Led on. She led me into her room and said, "Watch this." She pushed a button by the bed, and the sliding door between the family room and the patio slid closed, and a red light over the patio display turned green. All of the monitors displayed green lights except the monitors that show out of the yard area. They had irregular white lights. Bobby smiled at me and said, "There, all secure." She pulled a sheet and bedspread over us, pulling me into her to be cradled against her chest. She kissed my forehead and I felt her body relax. She was content. I drifted off for about an hour until I heard a beep, 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 continuously coming from the monitor area. I quickly sat up, looking at the monitors, and saw the mailman walking up the sidewalk and setting a large folder by the door before walking back to his truck. He put some mail in the mailbox and pulled down the street to the next house. I could see this in the monitors from the roof. I watched as the truck went to each mailbox until it turned at the intersection to go down that street. Bobby said, "If he didn't turn at that street, I would think there was a problem, but it's probably something from the service. They send stuff in big envelopes that look as if I subscribed to some kind of coin collection club." She got up and went to the monitors and picked up a joystick. "Let's look at the envelope before I put on clothes and get the mail." She maneuvered the camera to look at the envelope and zoomed in on it. The envelope said, "United States Mint Collectors Club." I guess we should dress. Darn, I really enjoy being naked with you. It feels so good, and I keep thinking that we're both so available to each other to just ravish. But if we're going to get any studying done, we better put on some clothes. She slipped on some shorts and a big man's short sleeve shirt and only buttoned it up enough to leave a delightful view of some cleavage. She said, "I'm going for the mail. Slip on some shorts and a shirt and meet me in the family room." When I was dressed with my leg in place and in the family room, I watched as Bobby opened the envelope. There were several pieces of paper and a couple of checks. She handed me a sheet of paper that had my name in the area of the memo. It was a welcome into the U.S. Marshal Service. It explained that my swearing and had initiated all of the customary benefits of a deputy marshal at the grade of corporal. If I were to complete the list of training requirements below, I would be eligible for promotion to sergeant. Upon reading the list of training videos, I discovered that I had already watched all but one. Serena had already tested me on the others, so she must have forgotten the remaining one, or she had a reason not to give that one to me. Bobby said, "You're pretty important property to the service. They even sent me an extra stipend in order to purchase any special materials for your comfort. I suppose I could go into city to the strip clubs and pick out a couple of dancers for you." No reason to do that, though. All I have to do is call my two younger sisters. They would be out here in a heartbeat putting on a show for you. So, what was your note all about? I showed her the note and explained that I had already completed and had been tested on all of the videos except the one. She checked the name of the video and said, "I have that. We'll watch it in a bit and I'll test you on it afterward. Now that you know you need to absorb what's on the videos, you'll remember them." How did you do on the others that you watched? I don't know the score, but Serena said I passed all of them fine. I really like the interrogation videos. They were good because I can use that information for my interviews for my regular job if I ever get to go back to it. If you make sergeant, you may not want to go back to that job. If you make sergeant, you will be making about 65 base. The best part about it is that you will be just one step down from a station chief like Howard. Whoever got you classified as a corporal coming in did you the big favor. It takes guys 5, 6, 7 years to make corporal. It must have been your military service that did that. I'll ask Serena or Howard. She smiled and said, "Come help me find that video in the worksheet. Let's make you eligible for sergeant your first day of training out here." First, we put away the mail that we had received before we went to find the video. In her magic closet, she had a shelf come down on some kind of motorized rotating basis. It took 3 shelves before we found the video and training packet. The video was on hostage negotiations. The service kept a hard line on hostages, not compromising to the kidnapper, unless directed by Washington. All of the information was pretty straightforward until it got to the documented situations. There were 6 case studies where 4 were completed, saving the hostage, but 2 cost the lives of the hostage, and one of those also cost the life of a deputy marshal. All of the videos had the good and the bad. It seems as if the service lost a deputy in almost every type of confrontation at one time or another. It was good that they documented it on the videos, so you knew that the job had risks. After I filled out the test, instead of giving oral answers, Bobby faxed the sheet to Serena. Once it was gone and a confirmation received, she called, turning on the speaker of the answering machine while she was on the handset that went with the cordless set. "Bobby, well, Serena, you can send Chad, and so he's on the sergeant list now." "Serena, I know. Isn't it neat they gave him credit for his military service?" Howard reviewed his military record and said Chad had several commendations and honor medals. I'm typing up the transmitter for his sergeant grade right now. Considering he's in protective custody, he might get the grade almost overnight. Once he becomes sergeant, he might be allowed to come back to life and help track down the rest of the bad guys. "Bobby, you know he did all of the initial and pre-field videos too, don't you, Serena?" "Yes, he did that on his own. He figured out which ones he should watch this past weekend pretty much on his own. I only put a few in on him so he'd have some enjoyable ones too. You know, he scored an almost perfect score on all the post-video tests. Those scores will help him towards sergeant too. Bobby, do you think some of the other younger or newer deputies will be jealous?" "Serena, I don't think so." They all saw how Chad figured out that he needed to be taken out of the picture, and he even planned out how to do it. What was bad was that Billy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Oh, I need to tell you the service is giving him an honor burial along with his family. It's going to be one consolidated service. His record is being sealed without mention that he did away with the prisoners. The Bureau is going along with it because it was their man that didn't accompany Billy in the cell area. The man is on report over it. Anyway, you need to attend the funeral. Chad will probably be fine out there by himself. He's pretty resourceful and he doesn't scare very easily. Bobby, let me know when it is and I'll be there. Serena, it's tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. After the service, they're going to take the whole family to a plot over at the Garden of Memories on East Lake. After the graveside service, there is going to be a lunch and wake back downtown. It's going to be a full day, so make sure Chad has something constructive to do tomorrow. Bobby, I'll just have him rest up all day so he can take care of me when I get home. Think that'll work, Serena? Oh, you've probably already gotten to his pants. But then I know you too well. You're such a stickler on procedure. While you have that man in your clutches, you should take advantage of him. I know I would, but he's too young for me. Bobby, well, maybe you'll have to come out here and entertain him one day this weekend. We could double team him and see how he holds up. See if he would make a good undercover guy. Serena and Bobby laughed together. Bobby, okay, I'll meet you at the office. No later than 9, so we can go out to the funeral home together. See you tomorrow. Once off the phone, Bobby said, let's read the newspapers about yesterday. We became distracted this morning and didn't do that. The front page headline announced FBI agent and U.S. Deputy Marshal killed in downtown Tampa. The story didn't follow the line that we had set up for the bad guy's consumption, but said 2 men with rifles had shot the men in front of the federal building. The story gave Billy's name and said that his family was being searched for as they had been kidnapped earlier. They didn't give my name, but said I was a new deputy marshal and new to the area. The service was withholding my name until next of kin could be notified. There was a picture of Billy and me laying on the sidewalk with sheets over us. Another story told about several underworld hoodlums who had been killed recently in confrontations with law enforcement. The newspaper described that 2 hired killers who were later killed in a confrontation had earlier assassinated 2 men. The gun battle had been witnessed by some homeowners, but the media had been warned away. Still, another story talked about Papa Nardelli having been arrested, released, and rearrested when trying to flee the country. Papa's attorney gave a statement saying that Papa wasn't trying to run, but wanted to go somewhere to relax and get over the trauma of being jailed. For some strange reason, the writer didn't give the charges Papa was being held on. There was no comment on the fraudulent employment and training scam that had been and possibly still was occurring. It's pretty difficult to shut off money when it is being sent regularly by the government. We went to Bobby's computer where she logged on to the U.S. Marshal's website. There, we were able to look up the investigation. They listed cities from coast to coast with individual names of the people who were supposedly trained and hired with a subsidy. The service had referred the case to the Bureau, and the amount of misappropriated funds exceeded $100 million. Bobby said, no wonder you are not very popular. You probably cost them another $100 million because you blew the whistle on them. I wonder if the service is going to make up a story saying you were working undercover to investigate suspected fraud. If they did that, the bad guys would leave you alone because covert stuff is okay with the bad guys. It's part of the business. If you were undercover with the bad guys, they would be hunting you. But since you were possibly undercover in another government agency, you're probably clear. I'll ask Howard about that tomorrow. Bobby shut down the computer and said, okay, it's time for some physical training. Come work out with me. You need to work out to keep your strength up, and I need to get really strong so I can get into a carnival sideshow. We both laughed at that. I began by warming up on the bike for 10 minutes before I got on the dreaded treadmill and stayed there for 30 minutes. As soon as I was off the bike, Bobby rode hard at a high tension rate for almost 30 minutes. When she was done, she began doing stretches before she used the free weights. She worked steadily, only once having me come over to spot her while she was doing her bench presses. Wow, she pressed right at 500 pounds. That is strong. I used the machines for shoulder and abdomen exercises, used some weight for curls, and finished by doing my 200-pound bench press that I was so proud of. We kept going for about an hour and a half. Eventually, Bobby got up, stretched, and said, come on, let's swim and loosen up. We won't get much chance to do this tomorrow. You can use the gym equipment, but not the pool. You'll be limited to the house until I get back. We went for a swim after dropping our clothes and my leg on the patio. Afterward, Bobby uncovered the hot tub. We got in and relaxed in the warm water and bubbles. It was a peaceful way to wind down the afternoon. After the soak, we took a shower and then made a great grilled chicken dinner together. The evening was quiet. We watched a movie and then went to bed in Bobby's room. The bed was big enough that we each had plenty of space to sleep comfortably. The morning was just as calm. Before Bobby got ready to go into the office, we swam hard for about 20 minutes, then relaxed, over coffee and some pancakes. While I cleaned up the kitchen and dishes, Bobby showered and got ready to leave. When she came out of the bedroom, I whistled. "You really dress up nice, looking good, kid." "Thank you, kind sir. I don't get a chance to dress up very often. With you around, I don't want to dress at all." "Listen now. You have to keep all of the drapes pulled, all of the doors locked, and no loud music. When I leave, the house is supposedly empty. I showed you how the perimeter alarms work, so be sure to set them. Here's a cell phone to use in case you have to call someone. That way, you won't be using the main line. I think that's all. I'll see you this evening." Bobby got into the expedition, made the garage door open, and left after closing it. I turned on all the alarms, making sure all the lights on the monitors were green. My day was going to be exercising first, followed by some studying. I spent an hour and a half in the gym and took a shower to clean the sweat off. I had to find some clean clothes, so I raided the inventory again for some jeans and a t-shirt. I was comfortable wearing the jeans so I didn't have to look at the damned leg all the time. Out of sight, out of mind. I selected 3 of the advanced videos, one on counter-espionage, one on methods of attacking a fortified structure, and one on high-speed pursuit. After the first video, I took the written test just before it was lunchtime. While I was finishing lunch, the cell phone rang. I reluctantly answered it. It was Bobby. She was out of breath and began rattling on about a car exploding and that Serena and her had run down a bad guy. "Slow down, Bobby. Tell me slowly what happened." She said, "I'll tell you in a little while." "I don't think they will have that luncheon. We're finishing our report right now and I'll be leaving. The way Serena is acting, I might bring her home with me. I'll send her mom to stay with a neighbor." God, you won't believe all of this. I could believe just about anything at this point. I went into my room and put on my shoulder rig just to be sure I knew where it was. I checked to be sure there was a round in the chamber. I began checking weapons that I had been shown the day before. The MP5 at the door in the umbrella stand had a full magazine, less 2 rounds from the way it looked. That was good, so the spring wouldn't lock up. There was already a round in the chamber. I double-checked the safety and put it back. I checked the MP5 behind the refrigerator and it was the same, locked and loaded. The Glock in the drawer was the same. I sure hope this place was a total unknown. There was some craziness going on. The cell phone rang and it was Bobby saying she was about a mile away, so I should turn off the perimeter alarm. For some reason, she was very curt. I asked if Serena was with her and she said very harshly, "None of your business. Goodbye." Something was wrong. I called the office and got Howard. I told him something was wrong with Bobby coming in. He said he was on his way, but to be prepared for anything. I was watching for the expedition. It came down the street slowly with a Chevy Suburban following it. I knew I was going to be at a disadvantage if I stayed in the house, so I looked quickly out in the garage. I grabbed the MP5 by the fridge and hopped to the side of the upright freezer out there. Depending on where Bobby parked the expedition, I would have a clear firing path to anything in the garage or in the driveway. I was hidden from view, so I would be a surprise. I felt my pockets and cursed. I didn't have my spare magazines for my sidearm. Hoping I had time, I hopped to the kitchen door, opened the drawer, grabbed the Glock and the 2 extra magazines, shut the door, and hopped back to the freezer. The garage door began to open. I watched intently. The damn windows on the expedition were so dark you couldn't see in. The expedition pulled in and shut down. I was hoping Bobby would automatically shut the overhead door to shut out the Suburban. Just as the rear passenger side door opened, the overhead door began going down. A man said loudly, "Hurry, go open the front door." I saw people getting out of the Suburban before the door shut all the way. The guy asked, "Where will your boarder be right now?" I heard Bobby say, "He's probably in his room jacking off." That's all he ever does. The man laughed and said, "Both of you get out slowly. No fast moves. Stay in front of me all the way to the front door." All the doors to the expedition were slammed shut. Apparently, there was no one else in the expedition. So I waited until the man was in full view. He was so confident he didn't even have his gun held up. I didn't do probably what you're supposed to do, and I wished I had a silencer. I pulled my 9mm and fired a single shot. hitting the guy in the head. Sure hope his blood didn't get all over the garage wall. It would be hell to cover up. Serena and Bobby both turned toward me. I tossed the MP5 to Bobby, and as I approached them, handed the Glock to Serena with the extra 2 clips. I said, "We can do this 2 ways. Raise this door and destroy the Suburban with the MP5, or go out the front and back and catch them in a 3-way. We have to move because they're probably going to try to kick open the door." Bobby said, "You can't break that door or any of the windows." "Let's do this. You go around, grab the other MP5 from the front door, and go out the back. Go around the house to the left. There is a gate that's easy to open there. I'll give you to the count of 30 and raise this door. Serena, you go out the back and cover to the right in case someone climbs the fence back there. Count of 30. Now go." I began counting to 30 slowly as I nearly ran to the front door, grabbed the MP5, and ran to the back door. Serena was right there looking out as I hopped out and went to the left. I went through the gate expecting to see someone. At the count of 28, I was at the right edge of the house and garage. All the doors to the Suburban were open, so however many there were, they were all out of the vehicle. I peeked around the edge of the garage while sliding the safety off, and to see there were 5 guys at the front door kicking it, and a guy by a bedroom window hitting it with his gun butt. The garage door began raising, attracting the attention of all 6 men. I looked down to make sure the gun was selected for single fire and looked back up. As they turned toward the garage and started toward the door, I raised the MP5, selected the nearest to target, and fired. I fired 6 successive shots, downing 6 men quickly. I passed the gun over all 6 to make sure none were moving before I yelled, "6 down in front!" I don't think there are any more. Go double-check Serena's position, then we'll tag these guys. Just as I heard, the kitchen door opened. A guy came from the far side of the house, firing as fast as the gun would slide another round in the chamber. I was still partially behind the edge of the garage, and I don't think he even saw me. I raised the gun and hoped this one didn't have any body armor as his head was moving around too fast. I squeezed off 4 rounds as fast as I could, standing the guy up and spinning him. When he was almost perfectly still, I put a 5th round in his head. He was a mess. Bobby came back through the garage looking down the street. There didn't seem to be any other vehicles around. I told Bobby that I had called Howard and he was on his way. He would probably call for backup. If she thought he would answer his phone, she should call him and stop him from bleeding anyone else here. I was expecting neighbors to be coming out of their houses, but no one came out and no sirens could be heard. Serena came through the garage and I asked her if she had a camera. She nodded yes, and I said, "Take pictures of the bodies real quick and we'll shove them in the Suburban. Hurry before they get blood on the sidewalk." We had 8 dead guys that we needed to do something with, so we didn't attract attention. I said that to Bobby, but she said, "If our cover here is blown, we shut this down and open another. We may be okay because I think this is all of them." They caught Serena and me as we went into the garage to get the car. I think they were going to use us like they did Billy's family. They could tell we were part of the service because I was parked in a service slot. Howard apparently told Bobby he wasn't being followed because a car was following another marshal that broke off from Howard to mislead whoever was following them at the time. Howard pulled up and parked blocking the driveway. He came up and looked around. Good. Serena's documenting the scene. "What were you going to do, Bobby?" She looked at him and pointed at me. I said, "I want to load the bodies into the Suburban so we can get them out of sight. I also want to get the blood off the sidewalk as fast as possible. Do we need the bureau, or do we have to call the sheriff's department?" Howard said, "We can do what we need. We're autonomous in this situation. Thank God those MP5s are quiet. No one's called the cops. Let's get the bodies in the Suburban." I hobbled over to the Suburban and dropped the seats down so the back would be open. I went with Howard and we loaded the guy from the garage into the truck first. Howard quickly went through the guy's pockets, throwing everything from them on the ground. He told Bobby and Serena, "Go through those guys' pockets and pull everything out. Do the closest first so we can get them in the truck." Bobby said, "Chad, you do the pockets." "Let me put these slime balls in the truck. It's easier for me to do it. I have 2 good legs." "Hey, Serena, write down ID info from each of their wallets and stuff it in their shirt pocket." I couldn't argue, so in the essence of time, I went through the first guy's pockets quickly. While Serena was doing the second guy, I switched to the next. We leapfrogged till I was at the last guy, who was pretty nasty. He was the crazy fool firing at me. I cleaned out his pockets and pulled his coat up over his messy head. Bobby and Howard had all 8 guys quickly stacked in the Suburban with the doors closed. He took the keys out of the ignition, then used the remote to lock it up. He said, "I'll call the Bureau and have their tow truck haul this to their station so they can do the bodies. Let's gather the junk from the pockets and get them in individual plastic bags." Thank goodness Serena and I had kept the junk separate. All had a wallet and all had a cell phone. Some had keys, they had some change, but a couple had notes about various people, our people, written on them. Howard had Bobby park the Expedition the way it was supposed to be parked, and he had me move the Suburban while he parked next to Bobby in the garage to make it easier on the tow truck driver. I backed into the driveway on the Expedition side. Then on second thought, I parked the Suburban on the street. I was happy to get out. The smell of the bloody dead bodies was not pleasant. We all went inside, but Bobby walked out to the mailbox, looking up and down the street closely to double-check that none of the neighbors had witnessed anything. Inside, Bobby said, "Now that I've seen how it's done, I think I can do this if it happens again." Howard asked, "Why did you go for headshot on all of them?" I looked at him like he was missing something obvious. Body armor? He blinked. I didn't think of that. Makes sense. I guess it's pretty common these days. If I were going into a fight, I'd have some too. How do you know to expect that? A lot of the guys I've seen in combat zones wore armor. Hard to bring them down when they've got it on. If you can't land a headish shot, you have to hit their bodies enough times to stop them, slow them down, disorient them, maybe even knock them off balance. When they stop moving, that's when you aim for the head. Howard nodded. You're going to have to teach that to the team. Everyone, men and women. He turned to Serena and Bobby, then asked her, "You staying out here tonight?" Serena exhaled. "Yeah, I think I need to after all that. I just need to decompress. I didn't pull the trigger once, but it feels like I was the one firing the whole time." Hard to believe a secretary could end up in something like this. Howard said, "Secretary?" "My butt. You're the assistant station chief. If you didn't know that, you haven't read your mail for a couple of years." Serena smiled. Yeah. I'm more of den mother than an assistant station chief." Amazing. We haven't had an incident in almost 15 years. Gimpier comes along and we have an incident a day and even get me involved. "I'll tell you one thing, Serena," Howard started. "Someone will come get you from this point until this thing gets put to bed. You and your mom are not alone. If I have to move you into the hotel, I will. I already have teams set up to watch everyone's family or they are going on long trips. No repeat of what happened to Billy." Howard cocked his head. "Sounds like the tow truck. Check it out to make sure it's ours, Bobby." Bobby hit a button and a wall in the family room opened to show a duplicate set of video monitors. It showed what must have been a familiar sight and face as Howard headed toward the door. Outside, 2 men in coveralls got out of the tow truck. One went straight for the chains and lift controls on the long bed truck, while the other came over to Howard. Howard said, "Hey, Jeff. So, you got assigned to this one. Sorry about so many, but our newest guy got a little firefight happy. I have all of the pocket stuff inside. I'd like to look at it and document it before I hand it over." "Would that be okay?" "Fine. Just do it on form so I don't have to do it again. I'll assign a newbie to double-check hack it and to tear everything apart." "You didn't shut off the cell phones, did you?" "I sure as hell did." Bobby said, "I don't know if any are GPS phones, but I didn't want to take any chances. We removed the battery on all of them. When you get them, you can do whatever you want with them, but I'd bet there isn't much information you get from them." Howard said, "Good thinking, Bobby. You've done the series on covert storage, I see." "Damn right. I've done every module having to do with this place at least 3 times, and several probably a half dozen times. I want whatever I do to be second nature and not have to think about it." She turned around and looked at me. "Hell, this guy is as much of a curve as you can send me. Who ever heard of having to store a dead deputy marshal in protective custody?" They didn't cover that one. Jeff said, "Maybe you should write a new training module." Bobby said, I'll let Serena do that. I think she'll have something to add for inside deputy marshals and their vulnerability. We sure didn't anticipate this one. Howard said, "You and me both. We should have after what Billy went through. The Bureau and us screwed up big time. You're taking this to the warehouse, right, Jeff?" "Right. The center needs to take this truck apart as well as autopsies on the shooters. Since you've stripped them already, it's going to be harder to identify them." Serena said, "We wrote down the driver's license info on each of them. It's in their shirt pockets. That'll get you started until you get the rest of the pocket junk. None of them had a lot in their wallets. So far, I haven't seen any easy tells. The truck may give you more info than the shooters and their stuff." We were all standing next to the big tow truck with the Suburban up on the bed chain down now. Another black Suburban was coming down the street very slowly. I was watching it as the windows on our side of the truck came down. I saw what looked like a barrel stick out the window. I said quickly, but not too loud, "Everyone in back of the truck, quick, Bobby, I'm going to try for the rifles." Serena still had the Glock, and Bobby pulled the Glock from her waist. Jeff, Howard, and even the tow truck driver all pulled hardware out as they moved to the back of the truck, watching the car as it approached. The tow truck driver was the only one to speak. "Damn, those scum suckers better not shoot my new truck. Christ, it took 3 years of begging to get it." I hopped to the house door and into the kitchen, grabbing the MP5 there. Coming back through the front door, I grabbed the MP5 from the umbrella stand. There was no time to go back to my room for my extra magazines, so I looked out the door to see the Suburban almost stopped on the other side of the tow truck. Bobby saw me coming and met me halfway, grabbing the MP5, checking it for a chambered round, and checking the safety and firing position. If it was where I had left it, it was still on single fire. A confident shooter always chose single fire over full auto. Bursts are good sometimes, but you can't carry enough rounds and magazines for full auto. The truck was moving again, and I could see the far side rear door open from my perspective. "They're coming out the back door on the far side," I nearly yelled. Jeff moved around to the back edge of the tow truck, kneeling down to give himself a lower profile. The others were directly behind the tow truck now. I made it to the truck and dove underneath to roll farther under it, edging forward to get a firing angle at the near side windows. Just as the truck came even with the tow truck, a round was fired from other side of the truck. I couldn't see the shooter because of my angle, but I was looking into the eyes of the guy in the near side window. He had a surprised look on his face as he tried to get the barrel of the AK-47 he had out the window. I snapped a shot and luckily hit his cheek that distracted him long enough for me to aim before putting another round in his face. The driver's window came down with the driver beginning to point an automatic of some kind at me. I hit him before the gun was even pointed my way. The Suburban lurched forward, leaving 2 shooters on the other side of the truck fully exposed. They looked stunned and began shooting wildly toward the house. They were both hit with multiple rounds within a split second. At least one of my rounds hit each of them. I rolled out from the truck the way I had come in, following the truck that was now being at least partially directed down the street. As it rounded the bend in the road, Bobby said, "Let's run. The street's a dead end. There's a cul-de-sac about 100 yards down that way." Howard said to the tow truck driver, "Move your truck to middle of the street. Block anything from leaving and get on the other side. Serena, you stay here with them." Bobby, Howard, and Jeff were sprinting down the street, Howard and Jeff with handguns and Bobby with the MP5. Since it would be dumb for me to try to catch up with them, I checked the 2 down guys in the street. They were toast. The driver put the truck crossways in the street so he and Serena could get behind it. I didn't know what to do, so I went to the far side of the house and looked through the other open backyards trying to see something. The trio was standing around the car with their weapons pointing at it, and a guy with his hands up standing next to the passenger door. Considering they had the situation under control, I turned in time to see another damn Suburban coming around the corner, heading toward the driver and Serena. I yelled, "Move! Get on this side of the truck." As they were running around to the other side, a guy came out of a sunroof and with some kind of small rifle pointing at the pair moving around the truck. I threw my MP5 to my shoulder and snapped a body shot. The man jerked back but wasn't down. I took the time and put one in his head. The passenger window opened and another guy leaned out the window with a handgun. I popped him before he could get off a shot. Next, I aimed at the driver's dark side of the windshield, letting off 3 quick rounds, then shot at the other side of the windshield with another 3. The car lurched to a stop in the middle of the street, about 50 feet from the tow truck. I knew more people were probably in the Suburban, but not how many. I yelled at the driver and Serena, "Stay down!" There's more inside that truck. I slowly went forward, keeping the tow truck between me and the Suburban. As I got nearer the tow truck, I yelled, "You're outnumbered! Get out of the truck slowly with your hands up. Be very careful. I'm a little trigger happy today." The tow truck driver was at the front of his truck, covering the passenger side of the Suburban, while Serena was kneeling down using the outside rear tire as a shooting position. I saw a hand stick up on the far side of the truck and noticed the rear door of the truck start opening. "Serena, watch closely. Someone's coming out the back." I began moving parallel to the street, keeping the MP5 pointing at the rear of the car. Just as I passed the driveway, the rear window on the driver's side exploded, and I heard a misformed round whine past my head. I let off 3 quick shots in return just as a head leaned out past the back tailgate area with a handgun pointing at me. I fired 2 shots and the bolt of the MP5 locked open. I dropped it and pulled my pistol. I was trying to remember how many rounds I had left, but couldn't remember. If I had at least one, it was better than none. I kept approaching the truck until I looked through the open rear tailgate to see no one moving, except the guy on the side of the truck with his hands up. Move to the front of the truck and keep your hands high. I began checking the down men to find that there was a guy that I had not seen that had been hit on the other side of the rear window shooter. He wasn't dead, but he was damn near there. He was hit in the neck and blood was gushing out. His eyes had the look of dead fear while he clutched at his neck. Of the truckload of 6 men, only 1 was still standing. I had the live one stand still while I patted him down and had him move toward the 2 trucks. I hollered, "Who was cuffs?" The driver said he had some and went to his truck, coming back with some. I kept my pistol on the guy's head while the driver cuffed him. "Take him over and sit him on the grass. Take him apart again." I didn't do a good job searching. Now the sirens were coming. That was a lot of noise not to be noticed. Howard and Bobby were walking 2 cuffed men back toward us when 3 county sheriff's cars came sliding around the corner. Thank goodness I had my badge in my pocket, so I held it up in the air. Serena had hers as she had put hers in the waist of her skirt. The tow truck driver held his up as well. 3 deputies jumped out of their car, pulling their weapons, yelling for us to put ours down. I yelled back, "I'm a U.S. Marshal and this is our crime scene. Stand down. Come and identify yourself." The 3 deputies were stunned. They weren't used to being challenged. Still holding my badge up, I said again, "Please identify yourself with your agency's identification." This was straight out of a video I had watched over the weekend. The 3 pulled their wallets and showed their ID. I told them, "One of you call your supervisor and begin doing traffic until we can get the crime scene. People out here. Keep traffic totally out of this area. I don't care whether they live here or not." The 3 deputies walked back to their cars just as 2 unmarked cars came around the corner. One was obviously a federal car as it had the front U.S. Marshal plate on it. That one pulled up next to the Suburban while the other car stopped to talk to the deputies. 3 more unmarked cars came around the corner, all with federal front plates on them. They stopped blocking the street with men rapidly climbing out of them at the ready. The 2 men in the unmarked car behind the marshal's car got out and approached showing their badges. One was a little huffy, saying, "This is our jurisdiction. This is our crime scene." 2 men who had gotten out of the marshal's car said, "From behind them, identify yourselves and do it slowly. 12515. There's been enough shooting today. Slowly get your IDs and hand them back here until we release this area. This is a federal crime scene again." More words right out of the video. Cool. The other marshals had watched it, too. 6 FBI agents walked up and asked, "Do we need a cleanup truck?" Serena had come up next to me and said, "I already called in. They're on the way." I asked for your 2 trucks and ours. We have a lot to go over. I asked the agents, "Do you guys have cameras? I'd like to document this area and go down the street and document the car around the bend." Howard and Bobby came up with the 2 handcuffed men and said to me, "Deput, I'll take over lead from here. Why don't you go sit down someplace and let the adrenaline settle down?" I was so tired, I was staggering. I knew that I still had to write a bunch of reports. Just the descriptions were going to take a couple of hours. At least Serena and Bobby could help me on the first one. Howard and even Jeff could help on the second, and Serena and the tow truck driver could help on the last. I got the attention of one of the marshals and pointed to the MP5 on the ground. Photograph that piece, then take it in the house. I looked at Howard. Howard had a serious look on his face and said to Bobby, "Guess you need to start packing." The two detectives didn't understand, so Jeff flashed his badge and said, "This obviously was a safe house. It's been compromised, so it has to be moved. Now, if you'll get your men and do some traffic control for us, we would appreciate it. If you could keep everyone from getting to that corner, we would like to keep this as private as possible. Call in and tell the news helicopters to stay away. Any that violate that request will be grounded." One of the FBI guys moved his car so the detectives and the three deputies could leave. The four cars moved down the street and around the corner just as a white van with U.S. Marshal's office markings came around the corner. It was followed by two more white vans with FBI markings on them. A fourth white van came too, but had no markings. Howard commented, "The cleanup crew came along early." "That's good." Bobby came to me and said, "Let's get you inside before you collapse." "You've had a busy day. No more than you and Serena," I said, hobbling toward the house. "We've been paid to do this for a long time." Bobby said, "You shouldn't have to start out this way. Besides, I think you accounted for every down man out there. The two that were exposed from that second car were hit by all of us, but you hit them too. I noticed that you used up an entire magazine. When are you going to learn that you reach down inside the umbrella stand for some spares before you go out inside the house?" The first thing I did was to go into my bedroom and find the other two magazines I had and slide one home and put the other in my pocket. I put the gun back in my shoulder holster and went into the kitchen where it looked like Bobby was pouring a drink. "If that's for me, Bobby, I don't want one until everything's put to bed out there." "Coffee would be great, though." Bobby looked at me saying, "Where's your adrenaline rush? How can you still be standing? I'm about dead and you're still coherent. I'm bushed, but you forget. I've had several years of that sort of thing, and with guys that were a hell of a lot more deadly than those guys." This was all pure reaction. Nothing like worrying about your team around you taking fire from all angles. Serena asked, "How about we start on our reports? That might calm us down. We have 3 distinct incidents. Let's start with the guys that took us down in the garage. While we were going through each incident, various men would come to see how we were doing. Howard and Jeff came in saying the 3 of us were going to be put up for commendations. He said to me, 'I don't think the service has had many deputy marshals that had multiple incidents their first few days. It was dark by the time the other 2 cars were up on flatbeds and cars began leaving.' Howard said, 'We're leaving 2 men out front. Turn on your perimeter alarm anyway. You probably won't get that much sleep, but try anyway. Chad, you stay here. You're just as safe here as in the hotel. Serena, do you still want to stay more than ever, boss? How about I get the guy that gets relieved out there to take me to the office in the morning? I have clothes in the expedition. You know, we didn't even include it in the cleanup on the investigation. Bobby said that guy had rubber gloves on anyway. He was pretty professional, so I don't think he left anything in there. How long do you think it'll take to find and modify a new place on Howard? We already have one that's not been opened yet. It's our reserve waiting for something like this to happen. You'll move there tomorrow or the next day. If we can keep this area clear, it's close, so it won't take long. It's probably easier to defend too because there is open space all around. We can put perimeter alarms completely around the property. The only problem will be the raccoons and other critters that wander by." Serena finished printing out our reports and handed them to Howard. He handed them back and said, "You 3 have to sign them before they are official." We each signed the reports and Serena handed them back to him. "Print up 4 more and sign another," Howard said. "Serena, you bring the signed one in and each of you keep a copy. Have it around with you for the next week or so, because you can bet a bunch of people from D.C. are in the air as we speak. Number 1 downs 8, or in your case, a couple dozen bad guys in one incident without getting a psychiatric exam. You did those 8 guys. 4 from the second car and 4 or 5 from the last car? It'll take you all night carving the notches in your gun. Anyway, you guys are probably going to have to come in tomorrow morning. Chad, you're alive again. You can just get your clothes yourself in the morning. If you want, you can wear something in and change once you get to the office. I want you to live in our secure house for a while, though. It's easier to let Bobby watch you than have you somewhere else. Jeff and I are leaving now. I think this is his first incident, and we have to go back and write up our reports before we go home. Bobby, I'll call you in the morning, and Serena, I'll tell the duty guys to bring you to the office with them in the morning before they go home. Bobby said, I think we'll just drive in with the duty guys in the morning and let the relief watch the place while we're gone. If you think the big shots are going to want to interview us, we might as well be ready for them first thing. Good thinking, Bobby. Howard was nodding, always looking ahead. You are a good deputy, Marshal. See you tomorrow. When Howard was gone, Bobby brought out a bunch of cleaning kits, and the three of us cleaned up the two MP5s, the Glock, and my 9mm. We reloaded magazines and stored everything back where they belonged. Hopefully we wouldn't need them again. Bobby said, There are steaks. Chad, light the grill. Serena makes salads. I'll do some potatoes and some veggies. Let's eat. It didn't take long before we were all sitting around the table near the counter in the family room off the kitchen. The video wall was still on. Everything cast in shades of green except for the patio. Even the perimeter lights were on. Surprisingly, none of us were shaking from the stress that kind of adrenaline dump usually hits hard after sustained tension and confrontation. But somehow, we'd bypassed the shakes and just felt drained. Bobby told Serena to grab her things and put them away in her room. We were all planning to wind down in the pool and hot tub. I didn't bring a swimsuit, Serena said. Bobby gave her a look. Don't worry about that. We're just here to relax. We're what you're comfortable in. We all headed out to the pool. I was the first one in and turned to watch as Bobby and Serena followed. Serena looked small beside Bobby, but they moved together down the steps and eased into the water. Bobby reached out and pulled me into a light hug, turning me slightly so Serena could join in. The shared hug was warm, genuine, just people decompressing after a rough stretch. Serena added, This is just what we needed after a day like today. As she stepped back, she chuckled. I think we've earned this. Bobby nodded. You definitely have. That kind of stress doesn't fade quickly. We made our way to the hot tub next. Bobby helped steady me as we climbed out of the pool and into the bubbling water. She hit the blower motor and the jets kicked in, surrounding us with gentle pressure and warmth. It was exactly what our muscles needed. With Serena on one side and Bobby on the other, we sat quietly for a moment, letting the warmth soak in. Serena leaned in slightly and said, You've had quite the day. Probably more than anyone else in your department in such a short time. Bobby agreed. No doubt about it. You've been through a lot. Give yourself a break? Serena smiled. You're easy to be around, you know. Makes all this a bit lighter. Bobby grinned. That's one of his best qualities. Just then, the phone rang. Bobby was ready. She reached behind her and picked up the cordless from the table. Yeah, she said into the receiver. Okay, we're good. Did you notify the duty team? Great. We'll keep our eyes open. Thanks, Serena. And I looked at Bobby as she put the phone back down. There is apparently some kind of mega contract out on our guy here. And now, sweet Serena, you and I are in on it. They're sending a couple of more teams out to watch us tonight and are going to move us into the hotel tomorrow. The Bureau apparently got wind of it, and they're sending a team out here as well. Let's go in and get ready for bed. I think we should sleep in shifts tonight with one of us awake all the time. Come on, let's get prepared. The girls dried me off, and not surprising was my pointer. It had quit pointing. They helped me in carrying my legs so I could dress and be prepared in case I had to get up. Minutes later, we were all dressed, ready to take turns sleeping. Bobby said, I'll take the first 2 hours. Then Serena, then you, Chad, go to bed, you two. And I mean in 2 separate beds. Try to get some sleep. Knowing I'm out here should relax you. It did. I was instantly asleep. Dear listeners, next part will release soon. Meanwhile, please share your thoughts in the comment section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.